Hey, welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. Full disclosure, it's my birthday week, so I'd rather do a little bit of a laid-back episode. So I'm going to address the latest disaster in the vinyl community, MoFi-gate, trademark pending, and that is the revelation that Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, or MoFi, occasionally has a digital step in their process of bringing you vinyl based on the original analog tapes since around 2015. I know the cool people that come to my channel just want to know about music, but I thought it might be interesting to hear a little inside baseball with regard to the MoFi controversy, as well as my rather snarky yet still apathetic feeling towards it. So please join me for the blog post that eats like an episode. Check it out, you can see exactly where the viewership dipped. Before we get going, I just want to thank my latest patron. Thank you, Sean. I am overjoyed that you became a gravedigger, and I cannot wait to get to meet you in my DMs. If you're enjoying the content on my channel and would like to help support the show, please consider joining my Patreon. It's at patreon.com/popculturegraveyard. And thanks. So here in a nutshell is the MoFi controversy. Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs has always put out a really quality product since the late 70s. And at the top of the records, it would say original master recording, which denotes to most people that they're using original analog master tapes. Anyway, there's a guy named Mike who owns a record store in Arizona called the In Groove. And Mike got a bunch of MoFi engineers on camera and basically put to them the question that everyone always asks: is there a digital step in the process, even for the quote-unquote one-step releases, which supposedly are as clean as you can get? It's a one-step. It's a lacquer and a plate. Then you press a bunch of releases from that stamper. Once the stamper runs down, they throw it away. It's a limited release. Normally there's mother plates and father plates, and they make little baby plates. I'm oversimplifying because I know you just don't care. Anyway, the MoFi engineers basically admitted that since about 2015, there occasionally is a digital step in the process for everything they do, including the one steps. Anyway, this sent shockwaves throughout the audiophile community and the vinyl community at large, so much so that everyone who has any channel that's even tangentially connected to vinyl has and should comment upon it. Frank from 33 1/3 RPM, which is a channel I follow, he's a nice guy and I like what he has to say, equated the MoFi Emperor's New Clothes kind of situation as being the difference between organic fruit and just regular fruit. I think an analogy with the MoFi revelation that might make more sense is it's the difference between Calvin Klein t-shirts and Hanes t-shirts with Calvin Klein labels in them. Why am I paying $25 for a t-shirt when I could get 3 of these t-shirts for $12? So I don't think the organic fruit analogy exactly speaks to that. Are you analog or digital? Hello, MoFi? I don't have a dog in this fight. I have a couple of MoFi releases. That's it. They are both Weezer. And the only reason I have these releases is because I did a lot of research way back when I was looking for Weezer releases of my 2 favorite Weezer albums, and these invariably came back as the best sounding releases I could get. And once I got them, they lived up to that reputation. So I'm all about the best sound. And 9 times out of 10, the best sound sends me to an original release. One funny piece of fallout from this audiophile bomb is that it's simply the chickens coming home to roost on the unadulterated snobbery which has plagued audiophile forums for years. You know exactly who I'm talking about. All these guys who were talking about the warmth and to-be magic of the new audiophile release that came out by MoFi that just blows anything digital right out of the water. We now know those guys didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Those guys are the most angry. I have very few audiophile releases. Most of my audiophile releases are jazz releases. This UHQR Miles Davis Kinda Blue is breathtaking in its sound. One of the things I loved about this job that Analog Productions does, though, is the total transparency. In big, bold letters, original master tapes. And if it came out tomorrow that, hey, we lied, it's all digital, that does not change how amazing it sounds. Two more Analog Productions I have are the Pet Sounds album, which I adore, on 45 RPM, one in mono and one in stereo. And the mono is transcendent, but the stereo is a revelation. And that's why I have these. Another audiophile release I have is from the Acoustic Sound series, which was mastered from the original master tapes and sounds phenomenal. But I knew what I was getting because they have full transparency here. I don't like when you have to guess, but that's not my message. My message is that if this latest kerfuffle has taught us anything, it's that you cannot go wrong with original pressings. And I've always felt that you go to a modern pressing because originals in really good shape are way too expensive. But that's simply not the case for a lot of these albums. There's a MoFi one-step release coming out in November for Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's going to be on 33 RPM, and there's only going to be 40,000 copies of it. People are going to pay $100 for Thriller, but the original sounds fine. And you can get a near mint copy if you want to pay up, say $50. So why do you need a modern pressing? Guess what? The original album of Thriller was recorded on analog tape, a 24-track machine. It was produced by Quincy Jones. The engineer was Bruce Swedian. Bernie Grunman did the mastering. I don't see how you can beat an original. Even if it does sound a little better, will it sound that much better? That's where your system comes into play. And if you're playing Thriller and it doesn't sound too good, but the vinyl's pristine, check your stylus. Maybe buy a new cartridge. Maybe it's time to get a new turntable. It's not all about the record. By the way, this isn't my favorite Michael release. That would be Off the Wall, for which I have the half-speed mastered edition, which is one of the best sounding records in my entire collection. And I think it's Michael's best album. Don't at me. Don't you at me. Anyway, Thriller was recorded all analog. Right after that, Bad, I believe, was recorded digitally. But trying to get people to pay $100 for Thriller. And if you lived through the 80s like I did, this is one of the most popular albums ever. I think it's the highest selling album of all time. It's obscene how many of these there are out there. This is the Jerry Maguire VHS copy of records. Did that make any sense? So I don't get it. That's why most of this doesn't affect me, because I am an original pressing guy. I don't even like the term OG vinyl. OG stands for original gangster. I'm not going to let that be co-opted. It doesn't even make sense for vinyl. I've been collecting since I was 12 years old. That's why I'm so into original pressings, because I began collecting when records were king, and I had a good run before CDs even came in. And then even when I got CDs, I was still collecting records. Anyway, let's talk original pressings. You know what's funny about the analog or bust audiophile guys who are always singing the praises of MoFi? One of their favorite albums is The Nightfly by Donald Fagen. Digitally recorded, digitally engineered, digitally mastered, digital, digital, digital. And it's one of the best sounding albums you can buy. Robert Ludwig is in the Dead Wax. This is just a phenomenal release. And I think a commercial for what digital can do for you. If it was recorded analog, I usually go analog. If it was recorded digitally, I take things into consideration and I make an informed choice. Speaking of digital, much like The Nightfly, Christopher Cross, the debut album. This is one of the best sounding albums you can hear. Great, great, great. Digital. Another great digital album, Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits, recorded digitally with a fantastic sound. You know, people forget, when digital came out, the word was everywhere on all kinds of releases. The hype stickers would say digitally remastered. It was on all kinds of CDs. It was occasionally on records, digitally remastered. That was the hot new thing, and everything had to be remastered digitally. It kind of reminds me now of the steroid scandal, where Major League Baseball saw these roid-raging players smacking home runs over the wall. It was great for the fans. It built up all this hype, and they turned a blind eye to steroids. That was like the digital era of music buying. And now Major League Baseball wants to pretend that there was never a steroid era. Those are the record companies now with regard to digital. They're like, oh, the reason that the vinyl resurgence is happening is because kids like analog. So let's just not use the word digital. Now I'm going to show you some original presses whose MoFi editions are among the most cherished by audiophiles. In other words, MoFi did versions of these albums that everyone now pays hundreds of dollars for. And I'm here to tell you the originals sound damn good. I'm not going to say better. I'm not going to say as good. If someone wants to pay $300 for something and they get a really good pressing, it might beat one of these, but the difference in sound is negligible if you have a decent stereo system. For the rest of this week's episode, please join my Patreon at patreon.com/popculturegraveyard or click above for more free content.